And I don't think that mental game coaching that revolves around get lots of sleep and exercise well and meditate and take care of yourself and take breaks is enough. I think we actually have to get in there to the nitty-gritty wiring and rewire it like we would a broken vacuum cleaner or car.
Okay. All right. So we're here with Peter Clarke, the author of Poker Therapy. We've been promising you guys this for the last, I don't know how long, like every other podcast. Like
two months, I think.
Yeah, we've been promising for a couple months. Yeah. So he's here with us, and we're going to talk about his book. We're going to talk about mindsets. We'll talk about just everything mindset related. So the first question I kind of had for you, Peter, is what kind of inspired you or got you into creating this book? Like why, like what was it? Like, were you going through like a rough stretch yourself? Are you a poker player yourself? Maybe give us a little bit of background, like who you are and like why did you even like write this book?
Okay. I don't think it was so much about my own journey as much as it was about helping students. I think I did a lot of technical work with students, and I was finding that 95% of session time was spent on technical concepts. And then like I'm essentially a one-to-one coach. Like the way I've built my business over the years, it's been massively around one-to-one coaching because there's just a really good demand for that. You know, there's a decent hourly for it. It just tends to be what pays the bill in the lowest variance, most enjoyable way where I can use my skills. So I've done a lot of that over the years. And I was finding that students who I thought were quite capable were coming back to coaching the next week, and they were just not retaining things, not applying things, and not using things. And then when I dug a bit deeper into that about like, why aren't you using this lovely, beautiful theory I taught you? Like, why haven't you made all this money yet, kind of thing? It would usually be down to some kind of what I call a misfire in poker therapy, which is like a mental program that's running that shouldn't be running, or a mental program not running that should be running, that's getting in the way of them using technical stuff. So what that actually meant was that I was feeling like my own knowledge and pile work and study was not being translated into the results I wanted to see from my students. So I'd always done a bit of mental game coaching, but maybe 3 years ago or so, a couple of years before I wrote Poker Therapy, I decided to get really explicit about my methods and make PowerPoints and just get into like the whole academic side of teaching the mental game. And since doing that, that's definitely yielded a lot of better results. So I just stuck with it from that point.
Okay. So you said that people, like you were coaching them, you were doing poker coaching, you're not talking about mindset coaching. You said you were doing technical coaching.
Technical stuff mostly, but you know, mental game.
Like it wasn't sticking with people. That's what you're saying, right? So like, why do you think that was? Like, what, in your opinion, like why was it not sticking when you were coaching these people? Like, what was it, you think?
Maybe not sticking is the wrong word, but not being utilized, not being applied at the tables is maybe a better way to put it. Like they could recite back to me some of the stuff I was teaching them, but in their play, nothing was moving. You know, stats are still the same. It's like, why haven't you got your float bet stat up there? You know, we talked about that last week. You're only floating flop 32%. You should be floating flop 43% in this pool. And, you know, technical stuff like this. And then when we got into the hands, we'd normally encounter some kind of resistance mental program going on. Like if it was a case of stabbing against an opponent's miss c-bet, it might just be this hand looks bad. It doesn't have enough equity. It could be a simple misfire. Like poker therapy is very based on the idea that we as humans, we apply things to poker accidentally and naturally that we've used for all of our lives that have served us well in evolution and survival. So if you don't like the look of something, and you shy away from that in life, like if I put down a big, like, moldy, rotten piece of meat on your desk right now, you would look at it and recoil, right? You'd be like, oh, get that away from me. So imagine a student, like, being told to raise 8-3 off when a very passive, weak player limps the small blind. And in cash games, that's the thing we'll do very often. We'll just punish that really unprotected limp with any two cards. So maybe the reason he's not raising the 8-3 off has nothing to do with his ability to remember what I'm telling him or to even understand it technically, but it comes from this revulsion mental program, this idea that that hand is like a rotten, horrible piece of meat. I want that away from me. I'm just going to check. As I got deeper into mental game work, I discovered that these programs weren't just in unique cases. They were everywhere. And people were using real life learned mechanisms subconsciously in a way that was accidentally sabotaging their ability to apply stuff. So it's very much about application. I think.
Yeah, while we're on the subject, actually, related to the books, from the questions I wanted to ask. So, how would you describe to the layman the alien world problem? Because you mentioned there about, obviously, if you put a slab of mouldy meat on my desk, it's pretty obvious that, as you said, I'm going to recoil. But in poker, the things that ultimately make us recoil are often, like you said, the raising the 8-3 is something that's actually very logical and profitable, but yet feels uncomfortable. Right. So, what exactly is the alien world problem?
Okay, so the alien world problem is my way of framing the fact that poker has different laws of mental processing relating to it than real life does. So all of the laws that we've actually learned to follow, not explicitly, we don't write down rules of mental programs that we run, but what we do is we act on things based on our evolutionary history and based on what we've learned growing up on Earth. So in poker therapy, there's actually this big picture of Earth with a face that's like, I know these rules. And then there's an arrow and the face is like, I'm going to apply these rules in poker. Cool, let's do set of rules X in the alien world of poker. And the alien world of poker in this figure is portrayed, I think, as like a big red planet with yellow dots on it. It's like with rings. It's like the furthest away thing from Earth, right, that you could possibly get. And the idea there is that the laws of physics, mentally speaking, are different. Everything is different. So when you go to the poker table and you use, let's say, the fairness test, which is just one example from the book, we have learned about things that are fair or unfair. The examples I give in the book are things like, somebody gets a job ahead of somebody else because they know the manager or something like that. Like all of these things return a verdict of unfair to us as humans. And in poker, when you lose 4 all-ins in a row, many people have a mental program that fires there, a misfire, that says that's unfair, that shouldn't happen. Now, what do we do in life when something is deemed unfair and shouldn't happen? We react with anger, we react with defiance, and we try to reject that state of affairs to impose a new one. So by doing that in poker, you're not consciously making that choice, but when you go all in the next hand or rage quit your session and throw the mouse or do something like that, you're actually trying to reject the unfairness of that situation as if it's just the same as, I don't know, being punched in the face in real life when actually you should be getting married that day or some crazy example like that. It's deemed unfair. And poker therapy is a big encyclopedia of all of the misfires that occur and why they occur, because they're all based on real life programming, and how to rewire them so that you can be aware of them and you can stop them ruining your EV in poker, because they're not welcome there. The alien world problem is just essentially that poker doesn't abide by the rules of real life. So why should we expect our evolutionary learned programs and our childhood learned programs to succeed there?
Mm-hmm. Fairness is a big one there, Jack. That this is something that I've grappled with a lot in the past. I know a lot of our players that I talk to have this same issue where they might not necessarily equate it to fairness, but it does feel like unfairness. So a good example that you gave in the book is having your 4th losing day in a row, for example. Where you fire up a session, and quite often we get into this sort of this thinking process where we'll sort of warm up for the 4th session. We're like, right, I've had 3 bad days in a row. Today I'm going to have a good day. And there's this illusion of control where you're like, no, I'm going to turn it round. Jack's laughing away there. You're muted, Jack, for some reason.
Am I muted?
You were, yeah. I don't know why.
Am I muted now? Or?
No, now we can hear you. Now we can hear you perfectly. But yeah, you get into this sort of thinking process where you just think to yourself, I'm going to turn it around today, as if it's possible to do that. And you go and you have your 4th losing day in a row. And it, like you said, the word fairness is so important there because you feel like it's unfair. But fairness is just a complete fallacy in poker, right?
Right. Yeah, fairness is based on the idea that other humans should treat you with the same amount of respect that you would treat them. And variance doesn't prefer anybody in the long term, but it massively prefers people in the short term just based on chance. So then when you're like, why me? Why me over and over again? Why have I had 8 losing sessions in a row? Man, I used to work as a croupier in casinos. And there's a little, I don't know if you've ever been to the roulette table as a poker player, maybe not the best, highest EV thing to do, but we've all been there.
We've all been there, yeah.
And on the roulette table, they have this little tracker, right? And it's like, oh, the last 12 numbers were 18, then 27, and, all the superstitious people sit around it taking notes about the pattern. And the amount of times that when I was working there that will just be 11 red numbers in a row is huge. But we don't appreciate that as humans because that would be unfair if something unlikely happened in real life. Like, what would the equivalent of that even be? Like 11 50-50s going wrong for you in a row. It's almost unthinkable, right? Because we don't live we live with such a high degree of control in our lives, and we've always evolved and grown up with such a high degree of control that we can basically impose our will against the external world, and we can say, I choose that this happens and this is super safe. Like when I go down and eat my dinner tonight, there's a 0% chance I'm going to like fall off my chair and smash my head on the ground. But in poker, that can happen 40% of the time, and we just don't. It's not just fairness. That's one example, but we don't adapt to the alien world of poker very well. And I don't think that mental game coaching that revolves around get lots of sleep and exercise well and meditate and take care of yourself and take breaks is enough. I think we actually have to get in there to the nitty-gritty wiring and rewire it like we would a broken vacuum cleaner or car.